Decoding Translations, the DPT podcast. And I'm your host, Sananda Biswas, and here we decode the career phases of brilliant minds in academia and beyond. Our guest today is Professor Karim Zantout, a professor of data science and IT at the Faculty of Information Management and Media, Hochschule Karlsruhe, the University of Applied Sciences in Karlsruhe. In his work, he brings together data, science, and human context to better understand the complex problems of today's world. Professor Zantout completed his bachelor's and master's degree in physics, followed by a PhD at Goethe University Frankfurt, where his study focused on the computational study of high-temperature superconductors. After completing his doctoral studies, he ventured beyond the traditional physics, working in industry and gaining hands-on experience as a data scientist. His curiosity and desire to connect scientific inquiry with social impact led him to the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research (PIK), where as a research fellow he explored how climate change influences international human migration. Today he continues to integrate all these diverse experiences to his teaching and research as a professor of data science, blending disciplines and perspective with remarkable fluidity. But none of this truly captures his story. Professor Zantout has traveled many lands, both physically and metaphorically. His journey spans academia, industry, and back to academia. It bridges physics, data science, and social research. Born in Lebanon, he moved to Germany at the age of 6, facing profound cultural shifts and the harsh reality of discrimination in the primary school. Yet, through the support of his family and inspiring teachers, he began to thrive, earning top grades in Abitur, Germany's school leaving exam, and receiving prizes for physics and chemistry. As he rose through academic and professional success, he also confronted the inner challenges that came with it. He speaks candidly about the imposter syndrome and the subtle weight of internalized discrimination, sharing how he continues to navigate and grow beyond it. This is not just a story of success. It's a story of resilience, self-discovery, and integration. Professor Karim Zantout is someone who has woven all the threads of his life, science, identity, and experience into a beautiful and meaningful journey. You need to listen to this story to truly see how. So without further ado, here is our conversation with Professor Karim Zantout in the DPT podcast. Hello, Karim. Welcome to our podcast, Decoding the Phase Transitions. Thank you for finding your time.
Hello, Sananda. Thank you for having me and for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. And I think you are, as a guest, our podcast guest, we didn't have someone before who had traveled so many lands, literally and metaphorically. Your experience and your career path is very interesting. You had explored many areas. You have traveled back and forth from academia and beyond, and you have explored many areas of subject and interests. So we'll go into all this. But first, let's go back to your childhood. Let's talk about your initial years. How was it? Where did you grow up? And what was the first spark of interest in science?
Yes, so I was born in Lebanon, in Beirut, in the capital. And I lived there like my first 6-7 years of my life. So there was like nothing directly connected to where I would go. I mean, it was just like childhood. I enjoyed it a lot. So I then came to Germany when I was like around 6 or 7 years. That was like for me first like a very big shock because I mean, Germany is very different. I can remember it was like really winter time and it was very dark. And, compared to Lebanon where it's freezing when it's 11, 12 degrees. And here in Germany, when it's freezing, it's like -5, -6. So it's a huge difference. The food is different. The language is different. And I was like in a German school in Lebanon because I'm also like half German, half Lebanese. But it's like a very different way that Germans speak German than when you learn it in school. So it's, I think many foreigners know it. If they start to learn German, it's like a very different type than the spoken German.
Sure. Tell us also, why did you move to Germany? Why did your family move to Germany? You said you were half German, half Lebanese. Was it the reason that you transferred? Was it a plan or was it sudden for you that suddenly one day you were told that we are leaving Lebanon?
Yeah. So the original story starts with my grandma because she fled from World War II. So she's like a German, and then she had a relative working in Syria. So to flee, so it was easier for her to go then to Syria and to live there. And then at some point she just like remained there, right? She got married, and then she got her children there, and they never really wanted to go back. And I mean, I think if she would be alive and you would ask her like whether she's Lebanese or German, she would always say that she's Lebanese. So she really assimilated into Lebanon. And then her children, like my father and his siblings, they then spread out into the world, like for different reasons. And my father then came back to Germany also for studying. And then he started to work like in the Arab countries. My mother was Lebanese, so we remained like in Lebanon because we have also like relatives there, and just like felt more connected to Lebanon. But as you know, in Lebanon, there was like also then a civil war and political instability. So my parents had at some point to decide. We were like around this age of 6, 7, also my older sister. So they had like to make a decision, like what should be like the path, because now it would be like a decisive moment, whether we would risk it and remain in Lebanon or just go to Germany because we have German passports, or we are all also Germans. And then my parents took the decision, and it was, so for me personally, it was like a very abrupt change. So there was like no preparation or anything. I can remember it was really like in the middle of the night. We took then the flight. It was dark already outside, and then we were like in Germany, and I didn't realize that it will be like permanent until like a long time afterwards. So yeah, it was like an abrupt change.
Yeah, so the political unrest basically was the reason to move, to give the children a more settled environment or more calm environment then.
Yeah, I think it was like more prophylactic. So it wasn't, the civil war has ended, and it was still like, I mean, no one knew in which direction the country would evolve. But my parents just knew that this is now the point to take the decision, right? I mean, better earlier than later, and the children are still now flexible enough. I mean, you know, if you're like small, you can still learn many languages easier than when you're grown up. So they thought, I mean, now was like the decisive moment to make it like easier, at least. So it wasn't like for a specific political reason happening back then, but it was like more this feeling and this insecurity, and Germany offers good education, and I mean, we are all Germans, so why not? Yeah. So for you as a child, then it was a big change of environment. And as you were saying, even though you knew the language a little bit from the school, you were still finding it difficult here to adjust. What were the things that you had been exposed to at that time? Like as a child of 6 years old, I can imagine the whole world is changing around him. It might be quite unsettling. What were the challenges? Do you remember certain things from then? Yeah, I think like the beginning, the most important parts are like family and friends, right? Like my grandpa was still like in Lebanon. He didn't move. He's like Lebanese, and he has like, I mean, he would never leave his country. And my friends, it's like, you don't have your friends anymore. And it wasn't like, back then we didn't have like, I don't know, Instagram and all the social media to stay still connected. It was like, and you know, to have like a call to Lebanon is like very expensive back then. So it was actually for good that we would part. That was like very hard. And in the beginning, it was also like smaller things, like the food is very different, and you know, you got used to it, and the weather and the climate, and you know, I was used to having like a sea, right, and mountains, and it's where I was. I mean, it was like close to Frankfurt, right? It's like very environment. So that was just like the beginning part, and this darkness. I mean, really, it's came like around fall, winter time, and having like these long periods where it's just like dark and the sun just never shows up. That was really tough. But what was really horrible afterwards, and that was like the most difficult part, was like really the racism, I have to admit. Because like back in Lebanon, I was a Lebanese, I was like one of the people, right, of the majority. And here in Germany, you belong to a certain minority. And nowadays, there are also like special classes, integration classes for people, so they can learn like German if they don't know German. And as I told you, like a German that I learned is like, although it was very good, it's still like a very different to the spoken and to the fast German that Germans would actually speak. And there were no integration classes, so it was just like, okay, go into the class and try to survive and to understand, and that's tough. And as I said, like the racism was like very hard. I was already like discriminated just because I was Lebanese. There was like no special support for foreigners. So it took some time. And even when you were like good in class, so after like 1 or 2 years, because children learn very fast, right? I was able to properly speak and to write and everything. But it was still, I mean, if the teachers don't like you because you're a foreigner, then there's no way out of it, right? You cannot like try to behave differently, try to
Sure,
get
it's
back
not a
extreme.
child's fault,
Absolutely.
your origin, but you were also half German. I know so many families coming to Germany that they don't have any German connections, right? But it's surprising that you still faced it. Nowadays, maybe the situations are getting a little bit improved with so much of social media and awareness around, and some of your close friends are also working in this direction. So in the world, so much of awareness is going on. Maybe we are leading to a better place. I would like to highlight a little bit because it's kind of very strange and difficult for a child to have faced these kind of challenges at the beginning of his academic year or academic journey, and you turned out to make all these challenges to be like in the positive side. You turned them around. You were able to face those challenges, going through them, and came out actually succeeding. I would imagine somebody who has faced so many challenges in the initial years of their childhood, they can shut down totally and maybe will not find their path easily later. Because you have done this successfully, I would like to know from you that what were the strategies or like mindset, basically. Maybe as a child you did not separate it out as strategies, I don't know, but there were some mindset perhaps that I have to succeed, this is my passion, I have to follow it. And maybe you can talk about, in this all turmoil, how did you find the interest of science that sparked in you? How the connection happened when everything was so dark?
Maybe starting back again in primary school. So back then in primary school, I started to internalize this kind of racism, honestly. So I was really like starting to believe that I'm less worth and I will never be able to achieve actually any educational goals. So that was like in primary school. But my father was actually the one who forced me to still go to Abitur, so to really try to get like the high school degree. And so what I then thought was like, okay, that's just like a stupid idea. So, but I was forced to do it. So I thought, okay, just go there.
Is it your father understanding that you were going through these challenges? Did you talk about it to your parent, that what you were going through in school? And did he kind of knew that you are good at something and it's worth pushing you in that direction? So how did that happen?
Back then in Lebanon, in the school there, I was like top grade. So he knew that I would be able to do it. So it's not like much more difficult or anything. It's not that Lebanon school. So especially like the school that I was, it's like a different niveau compared like to the German one. Yeah, it was really like more like a mindset thing. So if your teachers as a small child, if they tell you that you're less worth and that you will never be able to achieve anything, then you just believe it because they have like this kind of authority, right? I mean, they should know. They have taught like hundreds of thousands of pupils. So if someone knows, they should know. And if they judge you in that way, you just start to believe it and to internalize it. And so I lost like a lot of self-confidence back then. So as a child in Lebanon, I was just like a normal child. So I had self-confidence. I knew school is like nice and it's nice to see like your friends. But in Germany, it became really like a pain. And I was forced to go there. And the other pupils and teachers speak in a language that is not like, which is not my language. And I still have to learn it. So primary school was really hard and just my father pushed me through it. And then in my first class at the gymnasium then, it was like, I gave myself up and I thought, okay, I'll just do like the bare minimum.
Karim, I want to here a little bit make a pause. Gymnasium is here. There are three kind of schools that you can choose after your primary school. Gymnasium is where you can later pursue your studies in universities. That's the only route, right? And then there are Realschule.
So it's called like secondary school. So I'm sorry, I'm just using the German word because I know that the German system is like a little bit different to the other ones.
But for the listeners, which step you are talking about? You are talking about the secondary school here, right?
I'm talking about secondary school, yeah.
Then also this story of you going to gymnasium, which is decided by the school authorities generally, which school you would go to, which level of secondary school you will go to. That was smooth for you, or was there also a little bit of challenges that you had faced?
Yeah, so in Germany, it is like, so your parents can make that final decision which school you go to, but like the teachers can give like a recommendation. And I didn't receive like a recommendation for secondary school because my grades were actually going okayish. So they're getting like better and better because I started to learn the language. But my teacher just didn't want me to go there. So she gave me like a very bad grade in the course that she was teaching, so that she had like a reason not to give me like the recommendation for secondary school. And when I was like in secondary school, I trusted her more than my father. So I just went there and I just like waited until they would like send me back to a different school because I knew I wouldn't be able to pass. And that was actually like one very important moment in my early educational life, because I had like 3 teachers. And that was the first time that I perceived like German teachers as not being racist. Purely mathematically speaking, I failed all 3 courses. So I really, if you sit down and do the math and calculate like an average grade that they should have given me, I failed in all 3 of them. But they changed it in a way that I still passed. But they told me, listen, we're giving you this chance now. We should have failed you, but we're not failing you, because otherwise they would have had to send me to a different school. So we give you now this chance, but please start to do something for the classes, because they understood that I wasn't doing anything because I was not even trying.
What was in you that they see? They must have felt something. As a child, evaluation should be a little bit different, of course, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not only marks. They might have saw something in you also. That's why they did this exception. Can you remember or perhaps imagine what would they have felt that you had at that moment? Perhaps some curiosity, perhaps some zeal to go through certain scientific problems or like, classroom things.
Yeah.
What did you show as a promise that they did this exception? Can you perhaps a little bit ponder about this?
Yeah, I mean, I cannot know for sure. I've never talked to the teachers afterwards about this specific thing, at least. But what I can imagine, what teachers know, is if you have like children which are like very introvert and which are very insecure, and like I'm quite sure I had like this outer appearance of insecurity and not really belonging and not really haven't settled yet, that they thought we shouldn't just make like such a drastic decision now for him and send him to a different school while he's still evolving. And I think that was like their main point. It wasn't necessarily like me, I don't know, at some point doing like some genius things or I don't know, doing something great or something. It was really more, this guy really doesn't speak. So we cannot really judge whether he's like good here at this school or not. We can just not know. So we just give him more time and maybe he will evolve and start to speak up. I think it's more like this one.
But such a beautiful example, because I think what we are understanding from your story, and we know this as a fact also, that teachers actually can break and make a career or a person. Forget about career. They can make and break a person in general. So your first experience that you faced this person, particularly who had certain constrained mindset, but then to face this panel of 3 people who were nice to understand you as being a child who has gone through such a transition, such a drastic transition. This is also so much ensuring and such a positive story that you also figure it out that it's kind of important turning point for you, gave you certain boost or certain confidence that, okay, these people trusted me for the first time in this setup. It's very inspiring also to know that positives and negatives coexist, and we can only hope for more positivities around. From that point onwards, how your trajectory and mindset and your routines in the school system changed?
That was really the point where I was starting to actually learn, because I had also like a feeling, if they believe in me, if they trust me, especially these 3 teachers, then I cannot do nothing, right? I have to somehow be thankful by at least trying a little bit or do something. And that was actually the point where I started to get interested in this whole science thing, especially like math and physics and chemistry. I can remember like so many evenings spending like there sitting with my father and just asking him just a bunch of random questions about science stuff. What is a flame, for example? What is like this shiny thing? What is it? And then I would like dig deeper and deeper, right? I would tell him, well, what is like material made of? Well, and if atoms are like the most smallest part, why isn't there something smaller? And how deep can you go? And what do we know? And whatever. What is light? And all these kind of like very maybe basic questions, but I would just like ask everything. And the lucky thing that I had, he's like electrical engineer. So he has some science education. So he could answer me a lot of things, and he could like buy me books. And I can remember like reading also books and like popular science, right? About these kind of things. And there was like one incident where I really started to understand that I really loved this kind of stuff, where there was like this weekend newspaper, and they have like these kind of quizzes at the very last page. And there was like a Christmas riddle. And the riddle consisted of, you have like 3 different or 4 different types of Christmas balls that you put on your Christmas tree. And they have like different colors and shapes. And it was, so essentially, mathematically, it was just like a linear set of equations, because there was like the sum of this and 2 of that, and this is worth like 13 euros, and you have like 3 set of equations. And back then I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. So I was like very small. And my father just gave me like this riddle, just out of fun, right?
Yeah.
And I sat there the whole afternoon, I can tell you, really, I was sitting there like 6 hours,
Wow.
just trying to solve it. And in the end, I solved it.
Wow.
But just like thinking of equations, it's like a scale, right? You have like on the left-hand side, you have the same thing at the right-hand side. So if I start to add up the equations, I still have the same on the left and on the right, right? So I'm not doing anything wrong. I somehow like try to understand what kind of manipulations are allowed in this equation system. So
Were you introduced as a 10-year-old to equations in your education system, or is it like a concept that your father introduced to you that afternoon?
So I think for him it was just like I mean, there were also like easier riddles. Most of the riddles are easier, just like playing around and connecting lines and these kind of stuff. But there was like this hard one. There's always like one very hard one. And this one, I don't know, I got like stuck on it. I just wanted to solve it. I thought it's so stupid, right? You have like 3 Christmas balls and you have 3 equations. There should be like a way to solve it, but I didn't know. And you don't learn, I think in the last class in secondary school, the last 2 years, you start to learn solving like these equations, but not like...
Exactly. Linear equations, but 2 variables perhaps. Yeah,
and this one has like 3, and you have like a set of them. So it's really, So I played around, and in the end I figured it out, and I was like really so happy just like having solved it, and it was so nice. I didn't go further, so I didn't like, I don't know, to try to solve in general, find like a general solution to it.
No, but then this is already telling you that you found some areas that are interesting. Your father also played a huge role, I guess, in that, like recognizing your certain interest and initial talents in certain things. And he kind of made it interesting for you, to engage you perhaps more and more.
Yeah.
That's such a example of good parenting and paying attention to what a kid wants and where their natural interest is going, right? Also, tell us a little bit about the role of your mother in your early childhood and how she was shaping you to become the person you are today.
With my mother, it was like, or with my parents in generally, it was, especially like in my childhood, it was like often like a very conflicting situation. So there are like these positive aspects, but there are always like these negative aspects too. And it was like more on a understanding how the world should be. Like it was more like what should family be? What are like values and these kind of things. So we had like these types of discussions, and also like with my father. And I was like maybe I was a difficult child. I don't know how more reflective I would.
Every curious child is difficult to manage, I would say, because I am a parent now, and I know that curiosity in principle sounds very good, but as a parent, it's difficult because sometimes you can't explain the danger that it can bring, because when you push it to the border as a child, there are certain things as a parent you can see, but then the child cannot see. And then also there are these expectations from the society, how to behave in certain situations. And I guess I'm finding it also a little bit challenging and difficult to keep both aspects in my child's life. But yes, I guess parents are also learning to be parents when they're parenting. So, despite all these challenges, you found a way, found a love for science, found a love for mathematics, as you said, and you went to do Abitur that will open up your path for the university. So, what
Yes.
was the plan for you then? How did you see yourself back then? And how did you decide your career path?
During my secondary school, my grades got better and better. And so they were like very good at the very end. But still, it's really like this internalized racism. It's really horrible. It's still affecting me today, to be very honest. And back then, it was still also very affecting me a lot. So I had like almost perfect grades in chemistry and physics, and in math, I was like also very good. You would expect that someone like that would also believe, okay, I could try to study physics, right? And I also like won a prize in 7th grade for some chemistry competition, and for my Abitur, I got actually like also like from the German Physical Society some kind of prize for the best physics degree or whatever.
This is DPG?
Yeah, from the DPG. Yes, exactly. So you would think that someone like that would be like confident to start studying physics, but I was still like very unsure because I thought physics is like people like Einstein and Heisenberg and I don't know, Schrödinger. So how could I compete with these people, right? Just because I can solve like 2 or 3 equations and internalize and memorize like these kind of how to solve things, that doesn't mean that you know how to do physics, right? So I was like very unsure, and I did like internships, for example, for engineering, and I visited like other universities close by in Darmstadt and looked at their engineering, because I thought like engineering is not like too much science, right? I thought like physics is like it's really hard stuff and you have to be Einstein and invent like all day, you have to invent new theories.
Yeah.
And engineering is more like try to optimize a machine. So very from my childish perspective, right? So I did like this internship in summer. Then I applied to everything. I even applied to physics, but I also did like this internship for engineering. And I remember that I'm really so bad at this very mechanical manual work that I thought, okay, I never ever. So I even like at some point I even like stuck my hand into some machine because there was like, yeah, there was like a piece of metal rotating, right? And it's razor sharp, right? If you shouldn't put your hand in there. But I thought it just wiggles around and looks so stupid. So I just wanted to remove it. And yeah, I don't know. I removed
that was the end of the engineering career.
Yeah, that was the end. So I already felt, I don't know, that's not my thing, sitting there and trying to look at working with machines and everything. I'm more a theoretical guy. So I thought, I'll try physics. And if I fail, the worst thing that can happen is I can still get like some of the courses and, bring them into the engineering class, because I still would have done physics and math and they will do also physics and math. So it wouldn't be like a wasted semester. So why not try it?
How did you do this intern? Can you tell us, is everyone doing it, or how did you apply for internship? Where did you do it? This is kind of like career counseling, but by yourself, right? Basically, you are trying different things and figuring out whether this is for me or not, right?
Yes.
This internships. Can you tell us a little bit more about how this works in Germany?
Yes. The thing is that when you're approaching like Abitur and you're like close to finishing secondary school, teachers who are nice teachers will give you like a lot of space, because universities are offering like these open doors. You can go there and listen to introductory lecture. They will do like some exhibition, so you can look at their experiments and all these kind of stuff. And in our class, my teacher was like very nice, and he told me, I know that Frankfurt is offering like these Tag der offenen Tür, so these open days. This week and next week you can go to Darmstadt, so I will give you like the day off, so you can go there. And then we went as a class actually. So those people from the physics course just decided to go then together. So we went to Darmstadt, we went to Frankfurt and talked to the people. And then they told us that at some point you have to do like this kind of internship. So either you can do it in first semester, but if you have time, you can also just like do it beforehand. And I decided to do it just beforehand. So we just write like an application. You tell them it's like an internship specifically for this course in Darmstadt, for the mechanical engineering, for example. And if they have time and if they're willing to, they will hire you, and then you can work there for, I think it was a couple of weeks. I don't know, 3 or 6 weeks or something.
So this is like you have to do it if you enroll in the university as an engineering student, but you can do it during your first semester or beforehand. You put an application and you were invited to do the internship there.
Yes.
I see. That's such a lovely thing to do, actually, to figure out whether before enrolling and spending the whole semester and wasting perhaps a little bit of time and energy into all
Yes.
this. It's a good way to figure it out.
Yeah. Maybe just like one note of caution. So if you do this internship, the work that you're doing is not actually the work of an engineer. So it's you have to do like to work with certain machines, but that's not the part of the work that you will do later as an engineer. Very much to just, I don't know, to bring you like into first contact with machines and how they work and what they do. But it's not what you're going to do. So if you don't really like it, that doesn't mean that mechanical engineer is the wrong job for you. It just means that this specific type, which is not necessarily what engineers do, you don't like it. But I just felt and saw that this whole field of working with heavy machines and they're doing stuff and I don't know, drilling something and I don't know, that was not my thing. I just more like to play around with equations and seeing relationships between this and that. And
so then it turned out to be a good guide for what not to do for you in career,
yes.
right? Not putting hands in the machines. And a good lesson to learn. But did put your hands into computers later. And you did go to the physics curriculum in university, Goethe University Frankfurt, where you did your bachelor's, master's, and even your PhD. So it was a long time that you spent there. So tell us about when you went and you were chosen as a physics bachelor student. Were there any challenges that you faced because of coming from school system to university system?
So the most important part is like when you're in school, you typically live like with your parents, right? And if you want to move like to a university, if you're lucky, your parents live close by or they can afford you like a rent close by or something. That's nice for you, but I didn't have like that luxury. So I had to make sure that somehow I get my whole studies thing paid. And since I had still, even though I had like really perfect grades in Abitur, I had still, and that's like really this internalized racism, I really believe that I will most probably fail and have to go somewhere else, and this will cost money. And in the meantime, I will have to make maybe like a student's job, and then the whole studying will take even longer, and it's getting to be more and more complicated. So I decided that I will apply for a scholarship, because if I have like a scholarship, at least I will have the freedom to concentrate 100% on my studying. And I thought I would need much more time than other students because they're smart, and I'm just like, the sneaky guy. I always like, found my way. It's like these...
the imposter syndrome.
Exactly. It's this imposter thing, yes.
Yeah.
So I applied like for a scholarship, and luckily I'm very happy I got it. So
can you talk about a little bit about which kind of scholarship was this and how did you decide that this one is the particular one that you want to go for?
And that's again, teachers. Honestly, you really need teachers which are not racist and which really believe in you, and then this will have like an impact on your life. So I was like lucky to have like this one physics teacher. He saw my grades and he knew that like money could be like an issue. So he, in a very nice way, he told me that there are like these scholarship programs, that I'm very good in school. There's a high chance that I will receive it. So I checked like, there's like this website where you can check like all different kinds of scholarships. It's called efellows.net, but there are also like different other pages. But back then I went to this website, and it lists all the scholarship and funders in Germany. And I just scrolled through them, and I just saw, so there are like ones which are like close to economy, which are close to certain parties, political parties. One is closer to the Social Democrats. The other one is like more closer to the Green Party. The other ones are here and there.
Why is the political view coming through in these scholarships? This is not clear to me at all.
So it's not the political view. So even if you're not party member, you can still get like the scholarship. It's kind of part of to increase like political plurality in Germany. They offer like from all political parties which are bigger, they have like their scholarship. And the only influence from the political party is that the program that they offer for you, the different seminars, are somehow shaped into a direction which is interesting from that political party. For example, like, I don't know, the left party will like more present social aspects and inequalities, will talk about these kind of things and will offer, I don't know, feminist courses, and the other one, which are more like an economy, will deliver like other courses, for example.
These are not from federal government.
It is, they get their money from them.
Okay, I see.
They're independent in their program, so they can do what they want. It can't be too crazy, right? There's always limits to what you can do. But the money that you get is like partly, or like in most parts actually, from the federal government.
Okay.
So I went through the list and I checked them, and I thought, I'm not like a party member in any of the German party system, so I don't have a chance to apply there, which is, again, I repeat it here, it's stupid. We don't have to be party member to get like a scholarship. It might increase your chances if you have contacts always, right? But it's not like a necessary, it's not mandatory. So I went again like through the list, and then I saw like that there is like this one Hans Böckler Stiftung, Hans Böckler Foundation it's called, and they are like not close to parties, but they're close to workers' unions. And I just like read through their profile and I thought, okay, I'm also not part of a workers' union, but they had like the specific program, which is for migrants, second, first generation migrants who experienced, I don't know, discrimination, and they specifically want to push these people. And I thought, okay, I mean, I belong into that group. I maybe can just apply there. So I just applied there, and I had like this talk. And so you have to get like these reports from students, and you have like get the report from professors. And I succeeded and got like the scholarship.
It helped you in pursuing your physics degree, bachelor's degree, without thinking too much about the financial burden that you might cause to your parents.
Yeah, or I would have to work or whatever. So the thing is that back then I received like, so it increased because of inflation and everything. But back then it was really enough to cover my rent and to cover like also the cost of living and the semester payment that you have to do. So it was really, in total, it was really fine. It was like a salary, and the only thing that I needed to concentrate on to get my studies done.
In return, did you have to like, for the continuation of the scholarship for all the years, did you have in return show your grades or your marks or send some reports?
Yes. Once in a year, you have to send a report about your financial situation. So how much do you get? How much do your parents get? And based on that, they will calculate how much money you will receive. So if your parents don't have much money, and if you don't have what I don't know, inherited a huge amount of money, you will get like the largest part that they can offer you. And that's, so back then it was enough. Nowadays, depending on which city you live in, it's not enough. You still have to work then. And so that's like one aspect. And the other one regarding the grades. So typically, if I remember correctly, it was once all 3 semesters or something. You have to meet like with your professor, who's like to decide on your study performances. And they will also get like your degree sheet. And if they see, okay, it's not going well or it's going well, they will have like a talk with you.
Okay.
But
so in between, there are some evaluations to continually getting paid from the scholarship, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've never heard of someone who really actually got kicked out of a scholarship, even though the grades were, because it always depends also on your personal situation. There are people who lose like their parents in between, or I don't know, who are moving a lot, or who changed their mind about the study field. And depending on your scholarship program, they will also consider that in their decision whether to still fund you or to maybe pause you or whatever.
Karim, at this point, I think it's before we go into a little bit more into what this scholarship meant for you in the long run, this is the perfect moment perhaps to also give our audience this idea that what a great role teachers play in the initial academic years, because we started off with a kind of tumultuous moments in your life and that faced with the kind of teachers' mindset or opinions, personal opinions that kind of pushed you in a dark zone initially. But then on the other hand, in your secondary school, there are these teachers, like the teachers themselves helped you to also kind of push you into a positive zone, right? So could you please talk about this contrast and talk about the roles of teachers that in the initial years that played and how it shaped also. Basically, I'm also trying to point out here that it's unfortunate that we kind of face these personal issues with certain teachers, but also on the other hand, there are good teachers, right? So not to give up hope, basically, if somebody is at this point facing, some families or parents are listening to this and they know that they have in their family some child going through this, they should also maybe keep looking for better opportunities, better school, and this is not the end of the hope. So could you please talk a little bit to them particularly?
Yeah. So So as I told you, when I was like really in primary school, it had like a devastating impact on me. And I'm quite sure this whole imposter syndrome that we talked about, and this whole, even with having almost perfect grades. So I had like an Abitur. It's not like, I don't know, bragging or anything, but I had like 1.1, which is like 1.0 is like the maximum grade that you can achieve. And I had like 1.1. And even with that, I had like not the confidence, and winning like a prize in physics and winning like a few years earlier, like a prize in chemistry for like some school competition, I still didn't have like the confidence that I could do like a physics bachelor or anything. So it's really, and that was like years after this whole primary school thing. So it has like really devastating impact on you. And even up to today, I sometimes believe, should I really apply for this, or should I really do it like this or that? Because I always think, it has really like a big impact. So it's really important. So as you told, if I have to speak to parents, is really be very considerate and really have a look at your children. If they start to behave like very introvert, if you have the feeling that they are not very self-confident, if they don't play, if they don't laugh anymore or like less, or if they change their behavior, just be like very, I don't know, you feel also ashamed. Even though you're a victim of something, you feel ashamed that you are less worth, because you start to believe that you're less worth. You get it like taught, and then you don't want to speak openly about it because you're ashamed about it. Who wants to be like a lesser person?
Yes.
And so you have to be like very encouraging to make the children to open up and to speak, even though you're parents and you would believe, but we have like this close connection. It's something that you feel ashamed of a lot. And so that's very difficult. I don't have like the perfect recipe how to do it. So
it's important to pay attention to the behavior, as you said, and there might be, when they're not expressing, it's difficult to understand their point of view, as you say, because they close down basically. So it's very difficult as a parent also to nudge them and to understand them and to take them out, because everybody, I think every parties are helpless in this situation. So there are perhaps different kinds of help, third-party help that is available, and one can think of it. But also understand that, as you said, there are some markers in the behavior. If certain things are changing, less expressive, less playful, less energetic, and the whole persona is changing, I think one must pay an attention to this and then behave accordingly, knowing that there might be different things that's going in the school or in the system. We are not here to give solutions. I just want to make the awareness here and tell people that it's also not the end of the road, because your life proves that, your career path proves that, your career stories, as you told us, that there are good and there are bad. So it's kind of the good, actually, the good teachers actually pushed you to this direction and to follow your passion. They understood where you could test yourself, giving you pointers to do internship, giving you pointers to apply for fellowship. So in the system also not losing hope, and maybe a little bit supporting and kind environment for the kid as a society, that would be very helpful, I guess.
Maybe like there is like one small recommendation which helped me like later in secondary school. So if you're like a teacher and you have to look like for which school is like the best one for my child. So what
if you're a parent.
If you're a parent, sorry, not a teacher, yes. If you're a parent. So what helped me a lot actually was in secondary school, there were also like migrants in my class, and we had to suffer the same thing. So even though I couldn't open up to teachers and talk actually about, back then I didn't even know that there was like this word called racism, and this whole thing is like actually a structural problem, and we're not the only ones and just like unlucky, but it's like a whole thing. But at least I had like my fellow schoolmates, and they suffered the same thing. And it was like different if you have to endure it on your own or if you have someone to share it with. So there's like one story, for example. So it was like one of the final classes shortly before Abitur. And we have like this afternoon schooling. So what you typically do during lunch break, you would just like leave the school. You would go to, I don't know, supermarket, restaurant, whatever, get some food and then come back and then finish your lunch and then go back to class. So I was like with my migrant friends. So we were like, I don't know, we had Lebanese, me, and like a Turkish guy, and one from Egypt and one from Jordan. So like this whole, and we looked migrants. So when we came back, that entered like the schoolyard, there was like one teacher shouting down to us and saying, "Hey, stop, you have to wait a second." And then we were like just a little bit astonished because we thought, okay, maybe the teacher believes that we are not like in final grade. And therefore they would have like to stop us because we are not allowed to leave like the schoolyard or anything. But no, the teacher came down and said that so people not being pupils in that school are not allowed to enter the schoolyard. And we thought, I know why she thought that we don't belong here, because we are like migrants, right? How should migrants go to a gymnasium, to a secondary school, especially like at that age? And it was so nice to be like at least in a group, right? To have like, we endured that, and then we decided together to go to our head teacher and tell him, yeah, there was like this teacher and she was like racist to us and whatever. So it really helps to have like at least a small community that you don't have to endure it on your own. And then some people will be angry, but other people will try to calm down, and other people will, it's like, at least you're not on your own. You have like this group dynamic. So I would really give that as an advice. That helped me a lot in secondary school.
This helps. And also, I think kids are not so much judgmental. So to my listeners, I also want to tell, if there are certain countries where you have to wear uniform, the school uniform, so therefore this situation never happens that you enter and somebody question that you are not the students of this school. In many cases, like in UK and in certain parts of Asia, that's the thing, like you wear a uniform for all your schools. So in other parts of the world, the school uniform doesn't exist, and therefore these kind of issues and things came, unfortunately. And in your case, it was really unfortunate that you have to go through this kind of mental pressure, I would say, to a child, right? That there is a question of belonging, even to a school. So thank you for this recommendation. I think what we are trying to say here, that if you are, as a student, if you're listening to this, if you're facing these kind of issues, know that you are not alone, basically, right? Know that other people are going through it, and maybe sometimes keep yourself informed about others who are also going through this situation. Sometimes sharing the similar experience helps to go through and hold hands and to overcome these challenges, this kind of challenges that as a society we have unfortunately brought up to ourselves. Moving to our career trajectory then, going back to your career stories. You had told me before we hit the record button that these scholarship that you got actually shaped your career later and shaped you as a person. Let's talk about that experience. It was not only monetary help, but it provided you with something additional. So what was it all about?
So the scholarship contains like two parts. One is like this material support. So you get essentially money, and there's like book money and whatever. So this like one part. And the other one is like some idealistic, you can call it ideological, whatever, seminar series and support. So there's like these kind of weekend seminars, or even sometimes even longer language schools. So there's like, they're offering like a lot of things. And the ideas behind that, if you're interested in something specific, you can learn soft skills, for example. You can apply for them. There's like some internal website, and then you just apply for them. You write like a small why you want to do it, motivation letter. And then they either take you or they don't take you. And then they pay you like the ticket and the accommodation. And then you go there and meet other scholarship holders. And then you learn something about whatever field, or you get like some tutorial on something. So that's like the basic idea. And I did that extensively. So I went there to different like seminar things. So I was studying physics, and I did like in my kind of like, it's called like Nebenfach. So it's like a secondary course. I also studied like a little bit of philosophy. I also studied like economics. And so I was interested in many things. I just thought, okay, since I'm at the university, I'll just see what others are offering and what is interesting. And I was also like interested in this whole social science thing. But I did it like more than in these kind of seminar series, and learned like a little bit about, I don't know, different mentoring techniques and all these kind of things. And so it changed me a lot, because it was the first time that I met people who had this social science perspective on social constructs and social structures and why are things like they are. And I can remember like this one evening where, so we had like this course, and we, the seminar in the weekend, and then we went like out and had like some drinks, and then we went like back home to the hotel. We were just sitting around and talking, and it was like a group of, again, we were like third generation migrants. I am first generation migrant. were sitting around and talking about like discrimination, right? And everyone was like pulling out their stories, and I was telling like my stories, and this happened and that happened. And what I found like so interesting is that we all had the same story, but we all came from different parts of Germany. So I like came from Frankfurt. The other person was from Hamburg. The other one somewhere from East Germany, West Germany. It doesn't really matter. It was really like we were, I don't know, 6, 7 people from all over the place. And then we were still telling the same stories. We all had difficulties to find like a flat. We all had difficulties with teachers being racist and giving us worse grades, although we were writing the same stuff in the exam as other people. So and all these kind of things were just like adding up. And then, I don't know. And that was like the one moment where I realized, okay, this whole thing that happened in my life so far, being discriminated, believing that just because I'm Lebanese, I'm less worth and stupid or whatever compared to Germans, they all had the same stuff. And the one was like from Albania, the other one was from whatever. But we all suffered like the same story. And that was like the first time where I actually really understood the concept of racism. Up to then, it was for me just discrimination, right? There are some people, some teachers who just hate some other people, but I thought they hate everyone equally, right? Maybe they even hate like, I don't know, small people or big people or whatever. So it was just, I didn't understand like the structural component. And that was when I started to talk to them and to these others, and they were studying like this kind of stuff, right? They were studying social science, political science, and they were explaining me. And then we talked a lot, and I can remember that, I don't know, I was like walking with this one Iranian guy, and we were talking, I don't know, we went until 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were just like doing, I don't know, really talking about like philosophical stuff and why is society like that and why are we being discriminated like that, and it was really very inspiring, and I still have like fond memories of it. And that really shaped me as a person, because back then I was like because I internalized this whole racism, and I had like really this belief system that societies are layered and there are a natural order of things. Some people are better than other people. I wasn't right extremist in a way, but I was like very conservative. So in a way that there are these kind of things and they appear naturally. Like, you know, we have laws of physics, so we have laws of societies, and it's a natural thing that evolves, and it's not like a construct, right? It's not like something that can change, and nothing is like forever, right? And this started to shake up a little bit, because I talked to these people and they're much smarter than me. They study this stuff and they know like many more things. And that was really inspiring and changed me as a person, because it changed my own belief system and how I think of the world and society and politics. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's that also for us inspiring to hear that single incident actually changed your mindset.
So it's not only the single incident, right? I visited like many of these weekend seminars, and I met like many different people. I also met like conservative people who would like argue in the other direction. I started to read like more philosophical texts and more social science texts and sociological texts. So it was like a large process, because it was also like for me, you know, you have like this belief system, and whenever it's like threatened from outside because it's challenged by whatever you experience, you try to find like a solution psychologically, so to be happy with your life, right? And in the beginning, I experienced most racism. So I thought, okay, the only way to not being racially discriminated is to assimilate, and that was what happened, right? Many people who look at me nowadays would say, you're a German. I didn't thought, I mean, last week I was like with a dentist, and she was like Syrian, and she would say, but you have really nice Arabic. And I said, yeah, I mean, I'm also Lebanese, right? I'm not a German who learned. She saw me and she thought, okay, he's like a German and somehow he's connected to Lebanon, but I don't really get it. And she speaks like nice Lebanese Arabic. And yeah, I assimilated, right? I lost a part of my identity as a kind of adaptation strategy to be successful in this society here. So that was like my coping mechanism. If it's really true that societies are hierarchical and the people who are foreigners, who are not Germans, who are not white, who are not like whatever, are less worth, I need to try to be not like them, but be more like the others, right? And I was like very fond of, at least I'm a quarter German, so there's like something worth in me, at least. And that was really my belief system. I really internalized this. I really started to internalize these kind of belief system and these hierarchical structures. Since I adapted them and I was like happy with them because I was successful with them, I started to view myself as a pure German, or at least like a Lebanese exception. Let's call it like this, maybe, because I knew that I was Lebanese. My name is Lebanese. A lot of my things are Lebanese, so to say. I was challenged again when I met these people. So it was not like that they told me and I was like overtly convinced and I thought, now nice, so I can blame someone else and I'm happy about it. I was defending it. I was thinking, but this is a belief system. I have to give it up again for something else, namely that this is structural discrimination, blah, blah. I was fighting against it, and it's a process, right? I mean, we evolve as people, we meet new ideas, and these ideas challenge our ideas, and there's like this dialectic process where we emerge like into a new position, a new phase of our lives. So it's not ended. I don't have like an answer to everything, but it's really shaped me a lot, and it gave me like many new ideas, which some of them I adapted, and I'm still working on them, and others I rejected. So it's really enriching your mindset and your belief systems, and you meet like many different people. That's at least, even though you're maybe not convinced by it, it's really nice to meet so many people from so many different backgrounds all over Germany, international backgrounds. It's really nice.
I think this open mindset also is one way to go forward to have a more positive environment for everyone. And somehow I also feel that science actually teaches us to connect it to our other part of the careers story, that I also feel choosing science as a career, at least in the most hopeful mindset, it also teaches you to be open to different things, open to criticism, open to different ideas. You may not like that idea, but you have to have logical reasoning not to like it. You cannot just say, I don't like it. So these kind of trainings are integrated in our science education and should be integrated. And it also builds your character somehow to be openly challenged in conferences and seminars, and people saying, I don't believe what you are saying, and openly, and then you have the chance to defend your point of view with logic, with facts, with your scientific reasoning. That is another part, I think, also in the science education. And somehow in your life, we see an example of flourishing these kind of training, and you somehow kept it in parallel. You always had the scientific reasoning, but also bringing that from the personal perspective. The same qualities actually spreading all the areas of your life, which is beautiful to see. This, your open mindset, the certain qualities that science education gives us. What do you think that you had learned from your physics education? You did bachelor's, master's, and a PhD in physics.
I think most of people who study like physics, their original motivation is like try to understand the world better, how it works, like it is. And I mean, physics definitely helps you a lot doing that. And it's also like a kind of beauty thing, I would have really to admit. So if you see how some certain equations and problems, once you put like certain approximations or certain models, the equations really condense into a shape which is really just like, it's really beautiful. It's like it has like its own beauty concept. And
it's this mathematical language of symmetry, right?
Yes.
That's the beauty. When physicists talk about beauty, it's basically there is some underlying symmetry, and then there are some concepts of this symmetry getting broken, but coming another feature of symmetry at another level.
Definitely is like one thing. For me, like, I can remember the second semester when we like really derived or like introduced Noether's theorem. That was one of the highlights for me. I was really sitting there and thought, how is that possible? I mean, such an interesting concept of symmetry can really lead to something so important,
meaningful, and
just like and it's basically mathematical stuff, and it has like such an impact on how the physics and how world is like visible and measurable.
For the listeners, the theorem in physics that Karim is talking about, Noether's theorem, it has implications in what we call in physics conservation laws. Something is constant over time, or in quantum world, it can have certain other properties. It implies something like when this beauty is preserved at certain scale, that means something physical for us physicists. So there are some connections, and this theorem tells us that this was like long time ago. I think
20th actually.
It's the same time as Einstein.
20th maybe, yeah.
20th. Einstein was developing the spatial theory of relativity, I guess, or general theory of relativity that Noeth has appointed. And this we're talking about the discriminations in this episode. She was also discriminated. Being a woman, she used to deliver lecture under another professor's name. I forgot another mathematician's name. So another male professor's name. Her lectures were advertised so that people can come and attend. If they had been advertised by saying Professor Noether, nobody would come because she was a female. It's long existing, and we see this thing coming in different form and shapes all the time. You said you were attracted by the beauty of physics, and then you decided to do a PhD after your degrees. How that transition happened? Did you have any plan B at any point? Because PhD is a huge decision, I think. It is an academic degree. It takes time. It's nothing kind of that you have an idea of before going to, because until then everything is grading, or you have certain understanding of how the evaluation will happen. So how did that decision came about to go for a PhD in physics?
During my bachelor's and master's course, so I was like very good at physics. So I thought, okay, I will just continue that and I get money for it. So it's kind of, okay, why shouldn't I continue? I get like the scholarship and I'm evolving as a person. As I told you, I have like these seminars and I'm meeting people and I'm making like friends in Frankfurt. So I really want to stay there and look where I'm heading to. So at some point during my master's degree, so I was like, if you remember back then in when we learned quantum mechanics, right? We introduced like these operators and Hilbert spaces and all these kind of things. And that's important because at some point, I remember like if you solve like the Schrödinger equation in the vacuum, there's like nothing, right? You get like this plane wave solution. I never believed that because I thought plane waves are not L2 functions. You know, remember you introduced like this L2 Hilbert space?
Infinity.
And I was really fed up about it. I thought, so far, everything up to my mathematical understanding made sense, right? I know nowadays that still some things are a little bit wishy-washy, so you should make them properly. But that was like something which really, I don't know, everything worked out so well and everything was understandable to me. And now we're hitting like something that plane waves are the solution, but they're not L2. You cannot normalize a plane wave, right? Still like in the whole expanded space. So I swallowed that and I thought, okay, I'll just continue. Maybe at some point I will understand it. Maybe I just got something wrong or something. But then it continued. And there's like, if you look at Bloch's theorem, in condensed matter, and I went like into that direction. It repeated again. There was again like something that the derivation of Bloch's theorem is also mathematically not very rigorous, like the way that it's presented in physics. So that was like during my master's, and I got like really fed up, and I thought, okay, no, that's impossible. There should be like a really properly mathematical solution because it works perfectly, right? We get perfect results.
Yes.
The band theory works well for many systems. So I inscribed into mathematics. I thought I would do like a bachelor's in mathematics and try to go into that direction where you learn how this whole operator stuff really works. And when I started it, I was like I didn't have much time, right? I had to do like my master courses in physics. So I did like that mathematics bachelor in parallel. So I needed more time. So I thought, okay, what should I do? When I was like approaching like the end of my master study. So I thought, okay, should I continue with physics and have the time then also to continue with math, or should I just like do something else? And I thought, now I really want to understand what's going on with this whole mathematical physics stuff. So I continued and I thought, okay, I was also interested to continue the whole physics, and I had some projects still ongoing from my master thesis. So I thought, okay, it's just like a natural prolongation of my master thesis to do the PhD. And my supervisor was like happy to continue. And then she offered me like a contract. I thought, okay, I won't need like the scholarship anymore. I have like these payments from the PhD position. I can still stay in Frankfurt and continue like my math degree. So it's just like win-win situation. So I thought I would just continue that.
Okay. So you liked mathematical rigor so much, and you were frustrated with the hand waving way sometimes we try to logic in physics, that you were doing this in mathematical degree in parallel. And I think when I met you when you were pursuing physics, our time overlapped at Goethe University at the same time when I entered. And I remember now that, yes, you were doing this mathematical degree on the side.
Yes.
And so your frustration grew doing your physics degree, doing your PhD degree in physics, or somehow your curiosity was satisfied at certain level?
The first courses on mathematics were just nice on their own. So I had like to also do some preparatory courses, right? You cannot go into operator theory just like by just going there, right? So I did like repeated like a lot of linear algebra stuff, higher analysis stuff, and I learned like also many other things that I just like, again, went into the class and I thought, okay, let's listen to proper algebra, really algebra, not linear algebra. That was also like a very interesting story in its own. It has its own beauties. And then, yeah, at some point it got satisfied. I really learned a lot. I saw like the formal proof of the Bloch theorem, for example, and I derived it and I really followed how it works. And I did like some other stuff, properties of bands, of energy bands and all these kind of things. So it was not like, I mean, frustration sounds like a very hard and negative word, but in science, I think being frustrated is like a very nice thing.
Yes,
actually.
it's an indication that you are following the right path, perhaps. It's your scientific curiosity, right? And it brings frustration in you. So yes, it's not negative in the scientific context at all.
No, I really enjoyed it. I really have enjoyed having this frustration. I said, no, this is not rigorous at that point. There must be something more to it. And then you learn more, and then you see other concepts which are also like nice, which goes beyond like Hilbert spaces, and you see like other kind of spaces. And so that was really, and it was a nice combination, right? In my physics PhD, I was also learning a lot about like computer science, because you have to implement like these whole algorithms and these whole methodologies that you were deriving. And so I was also learning a lot on that aspect, but also going back into math classes and learning like the proper analysis and proper, I don't know, whatever advanced techniques you need to understand like rigorously what's going on. It was really very fulfilling, and I really enjoyed it. And it's nice if you have already a degree and you sit in classes and you have to write. I mean, I wrote the exams because I thought, if I'm doing it, why not also taking a degree? It's just like also nice to sit there and knowing that it doesn't really matter what comes out, because you don't have to apply with it. You have your physics degrees. This is really just like for yourself. And I still sat there just to see, okay, did I really understand it? So you write the exam. So,
That's good. That's good. You gave it a completion. It's nice to audit any course, but I think when you do it fully and get the degree, and it's basically, degree may not mean something, but it gives a full completion of your understanding that whether I can test my knowledge or not.
Yeah.
But your PhD degree was, on the other hand, it's not only mathematical, it's not analytical, as we say in our terms. Analytical means solving it with only pen and paper. It's also computational, in the sense you had equations, you implemented these in the computer language, you applied you had to learn coding, I guess, and you had some idea perhaps also, but also different algorithms that, as you're saying, right? With all this, bringing all these mathematical skills with computational skills, you were solving a real world problem in the superconductivity, in the area of superconductivity. We had our previous guest, Andreas Kreisel, who had given us an overview of superconductivity. We would like to know from you, what was the bigger question that you were looking after, in a broad sense that everybody can understand? And in that whole search, what did you learn at the end?
Yes. I'll not go maybe too much into detail, since Andreas maybe covered it about what superconductivity in general is. So there are like different classes of superconductors. These different classes of superconductors are based on how are actually the electrons coming together to form these so-called Cooper pairs to be actually superconductors and have like these nice, interesting properties that they have. And there are like different mechanisms that could explain what's actually going on in the materials to form like these special electronic pairs. And I was interested in one specific family of superconductors, which are like these iron-based superconductors. And they have like, it was like unknown, and it's still unknown, like which is exactly like the pairing mechanisms which lead like to superconductive properties. And there were like some candidates what could be the reason why these pairs form. And I was investigating this question. So in this specific type of materials, why do these materials become superconducting at some point? What is really bringing the electrons together? And The problem is with that is that the mechanism which was proposed is like a very complicated one, where actually, so as we all know, negative charges expel each other. So, but there is like some way where in certain settings they actually attract each other.
The electrons, you mean, right?
Exactly, and under certain conditions. So if you have like a grid in the background, an ion grid, and under certain conditions they can also attract each other. And that was like the question that I'm trying to answer. So the thing is, if you want to understand that, you have to understand what the electrons are actually doing in your materials. And since you have like many electrons in like a small cube of material, you have to the power of 29 electrons. This is very hard to solve, right? And there's like no way that you can solve this analytically, and there's no way that you can solve it exactly, even numerically, right? There's no computer that you can do that, and there's no computer that can store the wave function that you would need to actually store the solution. So what physicists have to do is then to find like approximations and transformations to find like a better representation of the problem that we can solve typical physics approach, no matter which field you are. And what I did in my PhD was to extend a certain approach. So there was like developed already like one approach how you can solve the movement of electrons in a material. And what I did is to extend it to real materials, because you need to include like more. So this was like just a very model type setup. But we wanted to solve like actually these iron-based superconductors. So I had to extend the formalism. So I was actually sitting down and deriving like tons of equations. I mean, you can see it in my PhD thesis. There's, I don't know, 50 pages just like and equations, deriving them. But then afterwards also implementing them and solving them and trying to see whether really it is like this electromagnetic interaction which leads to actually forming these kind of bonds. For certain materials, we had like hints or like showing us that we're going to the right direction. And for other materials, there must be something more to it and not just like these electronic interactions. And that was, in very short, like what I
Yes, that's a beautiful explanation of something which is very complex. And you finished, after you finished your PhD, Karim, you followed a different route and you went to work in a company as a data scientist. Take us through this journey and take us through this transition, basically. What are the tools you think that, or the skills that you gathered during your PhD that basically is valuable when you make this transition? And how easy or difficult did you find this transition?
So my transition, was towards like this data science position. So the transition was not, to be honest, not very, very difficult, because I mean, if you do theoretical physics and you do like the simulation work, you learn like a certain type of programming and try to reduce problems, try to save memory, try to save computational time. So you have like a certain, maybe it's not like, I mean, if you ask like a proper IT guy, that person might say, sorry, but that's not proper programming, right? I heard these kind of stories.
Oh, I see.
I heard it on my own. So because they have like a different style and they take care of more things than we do. At least you have like a feeling about what's going on. So this helps a lot for sure. And the other, so when it comes like to the technical details, so I was working like in this electrical grid optimization, try to make them more robust for fluctuating energy production and these kind of things.
Tell us more about this problem then. So what is the fluctuating grid? Where does this fluctuating grid used for? And why did you have to optimize it?
Well, the general idea is, I mean, we have like a climate crisis, as we all know, right? And what we need to do is like to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. That's goal number one, if you want to tackle that problem. And if you want to do that, you have to go like from the fossil fuels towards renewable energies. And renewable energies are, for example, wind and solar, and so they come like from nature. And as you know, I mean, if you have like fossil fuels, you can yourself manage the amount of energy that's produced, because if you want more energy, you just burn more coal, burn more oil, or whatever you want to burn. But with nature, it's like a little bit different, right? You depend on the weather and on the clouds and on the sunshine and everything. So there's nothing that you can steer. There's like some kind of heuristics. So you know, midday you will have like more sun than afternoon. That's like, okay, nice. But you don't know, are there going to be like huge clouds which will like somehow prevent you from producing it? So you need like always like a kind of projection. You need like weather forecast, you need solar forecast, all these kind of things you need. And this produces like fluctuating energy production in your grid. The problem is if you're, for example, if there's like, I don't know, it's late afternoon and there's like a football game because we have, I don't know, some kind of championship, whatever. And many people are consuming a lot of energy, and I don't know, there are factories producing a lot of goods now, and so there's like a lot of demand. The energy grid is not producing because it's afternoon.
So you're talking about the electric grid that provides the electricity for the whole city or to the whole area. That's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. You always have to balance the demand and the production. Mm-hmm. With fluctuating production, because it's like weather dependent, it's difficult. You cannot just say, okay.
So the supply demand curve you are trying to
not the supply demand curve. So that's like economics. It's more like really just physical.
Yeah, I understand. I'm saying that same concept we can borrow also here.
Yes, exactly. Right? Yeah. You have to balance them both, so the electrical grid just like works properly, and you have like a stable frequency of your current. Everything is like stable then. But if you have like a misbalance because you have higher demand or lower production or whatever, then the electrical grid just gets unstable. In the worst case, what can happen is you get just like a blackout. So everything just breaks down and there's no electrical current, and it's horrible. That's bad, right? We don't want that. And that's what that was the thing that I was doing. So if you have in your electrical grids forecast that there will be like less or more production, and this will destabilize the energy grid, what can you do to fix it? What can you do? So can you pull like a trigger, or can you activate like a line to just like, I don't know, to get away the surplus energy that you're producing? Can you bring it into a different grid or something? Yeah.
So you're bringing that solution from computational modeling. Is that correct?
Yeah, we need computational model because, again, the grids are very complicated. So it's not only like, I don't know, 5 households and like 2 energy production sites, but it's really, you have like transformators, you have like energy lines, you have like switches, you have all kind of components in your grid system. And it's like a lot meshed. So you have really to find an optimal, and you have to find a solution at all. And then in ideal case, you find also an optimal solution that you have to make. You don't lose like a lot of energy, for example, or you don't have to make like many movements, so to say. Changes to the grid. So that was like the thing that you had to do. So it contains like optimization aspects. It contains like solving huge networks of complicated things. And I think in theoretical physics, in many areas, even if it's high energy physics or complex dynamical systems, you always, to some degree, are confronted with these kind of problems. So it wasn't too difficult. And the basic physical equations that you're solving them from electrodynamics if you studied physics. So it's not like the physics which is complicated. It's more like the implementation and how to find really like a good optimal solution and make it fast, because you need like many predictions and not just like, okay, let's wait tomorrow I will have the prediction of yesterday. That doesn't help.
Yeah. But in some way, you are also dependent from the weather forecast departments also in this case.
Yes.
Isn't it? Okay. Yeah. So all these departments come together and work together.
Yeah, it's a big software, and there's like one department which is responsible for making like the power production forecasts, which again feed into our model of the electrical grid. So we then calculate the currents, and if the current is like too high or too low, it will destabilize the grid, and then we try to find like a solution. So there are like many components coming together, and we try to find like an optimal grid state, and how to fix bottlenecks and things like that.
So seems like that you had a nice experience there. And which city were you based in at that time?
That was in Oldenburg.
Oldenburg.
So in the north of Germany.
Yeah. And somehow you didn't stay there for long. Why the decision to change triggered in you? And what was the calling that you were moving towards after that?
First of all, the decision why I changed it all and went outside of academia. So after my PhD, I could have also done like a postdoc and pursue like this whole physics and math and whatever. But like a couple of years ago, like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I actually, it was the first time that I got my connection with the climate crisis and learned about it. And so I dig deeper into it and try to understand what's going on. And I thought like after my PhD, okay, if I want to try something else, now is the best opportunity, because if I decide to stay like in academia and in physics, I should now pursue like a postdoc and continue on whatever. But if I want to try something different, now is like a good time. So I thought, okay, let's try and see whether I can do like something practical to go into industry and try to make my contribution to fix like a certain problem. And one problem that we were dealing with like is to reduce like greenhouse gas emissions by stabilizing the energy grid so we can produce more renewable energies and less fossil energies, which is a direct impact. So I was looking like for positions, and I found like this position, I found it interesting, so I applied for it. And then the issue is that there are like many legal requirements if you're running like electrical grid. There are like many requirements on how to, because it's like critical infrastructure, right? I mean, fortunately, we don't have like a very unstable grid in Germany. We don't have like many blackouts. We don't have many interruptions in the system. Every now and then it happens, but it's not really, we don't really experience it as something very negative or something. And so I was working there, but these regulations from the state were like changing, and there was like a lot of going on with the grid production. And so in the end, the work was like also very much on software development. So really just like developing features and adjusting small things because, I don't know, something happens with the customer. So they produce the data in a different format. And if you want to read it in, you have to change it in the code. But it was just like, I don't know, parsing the data, for example. So it was, a lot of the work was also like this. And I got like a little bit, I thought maybe there's like more that I can do or something like different. So I enjoyed like a lot this data science part, but since these regulations were like very new, it was very important for the company to just produce like a working software now and to get up to date with the regulations and with what the customers are producing for as data. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll try something different in the meantime and then come back to them when it's again about optimizing and doing data science and less just producing software, stable software. So I was just looking around, and I mean, I would have also stayed there if I didn't find like this position, and it was like a postdoc position in Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research. And I was struggling a lot actually whether I should go there or not, because I really enjoyed the position. I really enjoyed the team. The team was great. The work was also nice, although the software part was really not my favorite. But I thought, I mean, it's close to Berlin. I just wanted to visit also like Berlin. I thought, okay, I mean, it's a postdoc, right? I can, after 2 years, I can always come back, and it's short time contract. So it's actually the only time maybe where people would say it's nice that it's only short time. So, and it deals with like two things which are also where I have like a personal interest. So one is like, again, the climate, which also motivated me to do this position. And the other one is also like migration. So this one was specifically on climate impacts in terms of human migration. So I thought, okay, let's try to dig into this topic and try to see whether I can make like some valuable contribution. If I like it, I can stay there. If I don't like it, I can also go back to the other position. So I then moved to Potsdam. Yeah.
I find your transitions very interesting and very internally driven. You always knew that what you are interested in at that moment, or what is developing an interest in you, because it cannot be shaped by one incident in life. You open up to so many different experiences and it shapes you. And from there on, it cannot be the same thing that we had decided 10 years ago. And somehow you are a living example of that you always knew where your internal compass is directing, and you followed that direction from physics to data science because it has an impact in the climate and some application there. And from there to again for this climate research and migration, which is also perhaps very close to your heart. And I find it's always like it seems from far away, a little bit fragmented, all this interest, and because you have different areas. But I find these hoppings in talking about physical terms, you have hopped in different places, but all these are very much connected to your internal compass and your story as a person. And that's why your career trajectory is so unique. How do you always find this right match? Is it difficult to find that right match to combine your career with your evolving experience as a human? Is it difficult to find that balance match aligned all the time? Because currently you are an assistant professor in a applied science university, and you have found a research area again related to climate. And I find that even though people want to make these transitions and want to hear their heart, sometimes they find it difficult to match these two together. Do you have any strategies, or do you have any tips for people who are trying to bring this gap narrower or closer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so maybe I can compare it a little bit to my friends. So what most of my friends did is sometimes, or not most actually, but like if you, it's like a very repeating story, and I heard it like also from many other people, is that during their studies, they studied what they really enjoyed and what was really close to their heart. And then at some point, and they were like very idealistic and they really believed in, I don't know, we're going to change something and I'm going to have an impact on whatever. And then at the end of their studies, they somehow, what they say is they got like confronted with the reality. I have to pay my rent. I have to need like some stability in my life. And then they tend to be like then more, I mean, conservative, but not like in a bad sense or whatever. But they start to not pick those positions that they want to or that are closer to their heart, but which are like more stable in terms of, I don't know, salary and location and whatever. So they're paying like a price for having like a certain thing, which is like stable, and just like giving up on other things, which are maybe what is closer to their heart. I think it really depends on you. So if you want to be like more, if you want to have something which is like more stable, if you want to have like a high salary, and if you want, but still to pursue something which is meaningful and close to your heart, maybe there is like some kind of contradiction, because it's very hard to find like a solution which contains like so many boundary conditions, to speak like in more mathematical terms or something. Maybe there's no solution to that, right? And then you have to give up on something or pay like a higher price on something else. So for me personally, because when I did like my studies, I lived like so the scholarship was like, I think at the best time. So when the inflation got like a little bit higher and they raised like your scholarship, I got like, I think 900 euros or something per month. In Frankfurt, it's not much. And then I gave like some tutorials. So I had 1,200 or something per month. So it was like not a lot, and with a PhD position, I got like half a position. So I think, I can't remember anymore. Was it like 1,500 or something? 1,600? I can't remember. But I always was able to survive with that money. And I still was able to do like my traveling. I still was able to do like my hobbies. So I thought I don't really have to pay like much attention when it comes to money. So even though you have then a family at some point, and I know then the payments will rise, and you cannot just like live like, 1,500 is fine if you have children, right? That would be like very naive to think like that. But there are like solutions to that you can say, okay, but you also, it's not, because I was like raised with not much money. I know that it works also with like little money, right? You don't need like, I don't know what, I have like friends who believe that if you don't earn like 5K per month, that you cannot raise like properly a child. I would say it worked out for me quite okay-ish, right? Could have been better, but so from this experience, I always said, okay, I will never have like this kind of focus on the money aspect only, but I would rather like focus then on really doing rather things that are closer to my heart, because I know I will be then also more motivated, and it's at least 8 hours a day that you're spending from your life on working on something. So it's really, if that is really horrible, you're wasting a lot of your lifetime doing so. So people will maybe like spend like a lot of time in their jobs doing things that they're not really fond of and getting it paid in terms of salary. And then they think, okay, but then I have like the money, and then they can have like nice vacations and buy me some nice, interesting stuff. I mean, everyone has to decide for him or herself. But I was never like that kind, because I never lived with a lot of money. So I know that I don't really need it. And I know that even you can raise families with less money. I know you need more, but it's not that I have to get like this huge job and work like 10 hours a day or whatever. So I was always like following the things which are like dear to me. And I told you, like, it's like, I was like very much affected by these childhood experiences, and with my migration story and with racism. So this whole working on migration, it was made sense. I always worked on it like in a very like volunteer work way. I gave German classes to refugees. I did like also like different classes to in my old school, and all these kind of things. I always like worked in this kind of field, and I thought maybe I can bring it even closer to my professional work. And so I thought that was the way I was always thinking about.
Yeah, talking about beauty, I think also it's beautiful to see how you have tied all these different threads all together. It's very rare, and it's so refreshing to see your life moving in a certain way. And looking as a friend, I think, Karim, it seems like nothing that you do, it doesn't raise a doubt in our mind. It's integrated in a beautiful way. All these parts, your professional and personal things all together and align so beautifully. It's all to a greater cause and not living only a mundane life. It's very inspiring. From here on, I want to move also to your current position. Many congratulations. You are now an assistant professor in the University of Karlsruhe, Hochschule, right? Which is the University of Applied Science. And you are a faculty member of information management and media. So you are professor for data science and IT, and you will be focusing on climate research. Talk us about how did you make this transition, the decision again, to find a position, an academic position, and also what are the research areas that we'll focus on in your research group?
Mm-hmm. I was like almost 3 years or more, like as a postdoc in Potsdam, and I worked like on these. Like one part was like on working on the migration aspect and developing a migration model, which is like stochastic. So very much motivated from what I learned like in physics and trying to apply incomplete knowledge that we have and try to make it like more rigorous in the terms of deriving a model which doesn't contain too much own perceptions, but really what does the data actually say? Again, doing data science. And
tell us about a little bit more, like how to model such a problem, right? So there are migrations problem around the world, human migration. And what are the questions we are looking at here? Bigger questions.
So human migration is like a very natural process, right? It's part of our nature. We have always migrated. We will always migrate. It's a very natural thing to happen. So the idea of my research question that I was trying to follow is are there still like some relationships which shape migration? Whether there's like some kind of, maybe it's some diaspora effect, for example. If you have already someone living somewhere, maybe it's kind of an attracting force to that specific destination or something like that. But maybe there's also like political things which play a role, like a visa, for example. Everyone knows if you don't get a visa for somewhere, it's very hard to get there at all. So it's maybe not the high probability that you would migrate there, because chances are very low that you find a way to get there. And so my questions circle around that. So I studied, like, first of all, I did like this whole literature review and try to understand what has been done, qualitative and quantitative research. And it's a very complicated problem because you have like many, many aspects playing a role: social aspects, demographic aspects, economic aspects, and so on and so forth. So I knew that there would be like no equation which describes the problem. There's like no deterministic equations which tell why people move from X to Y. That's not how humans work, right? So I thought, okay, that the next closest point that we can do, maybe if you want to describe it quantitatively, is to make it like in terms of probabilistic approaches, right? Maybe there's like some kind of distribution which shapes human migration. But what I wanted to do, like, strictly, is not to incorporate certain migration mechanisms, to explicitly say a human migrate because, I don't know, like a very common approach is to say if there's like a bigger salary or more economic development in one country, people will migrate there. And everyone knows that the reality isn't that simple, because there's like borders, there's border regimes, there's visa restrictions, there's a lot of stuff going on. So it's
and also the emotional part of it also on the human level.
That's a social aspect. Yeah, I'm just referring now to that one theory which says if there is economic gradient, so to say, people are going to move. That's not realistic. That's also not how humans work. Yes, exactly. You have your family, you have like your cultural bondings to your land and so on. So I thought I want to set up like a model which is mostly probabilistic. So just looking what the data tells us, derive distributions from that, and distributions are then driving the equations to see where people are then moving. And the equations are, again, just like, since we talked about symmetry and conservation, the number of people is conserved, right, up to death and birth. So there's like equations actually telling you how the accounting of different people in terms of numbers have to work out. And I only just combined those two.
Did you rely on any survey of really going on the ground, asking people why did they, like, where is the data coming from for your simulation?
Mm-hmm. So since I need like a lot of data, because if you want to fit like distributions and to do like this whole work, you need like a lot of data. But we have like only data for good data is very, very rare. And we have like data for approximately only 30 years if you look at international migration. And if you want to have it like on country level and rather okayish data, and it comes from the UN. So there's like a UN department which is responsible for collecting the different data from different countries, and they're bringing it together and try to make it in a homogeneous way so that the numbers are actually comparable to each other, which is also not always the case. So it's really complicated from bottom to top. Everything is very complicated. So there are also surveys, and surveys can be used then also for quantitative and qualitative analysis, depending on the setup of the survey. And yeah, it really depends. So you get like very different results depending on the questions and also like on the region. So that's what makes migration so complicated. As you said, there's like social aspects, demographic, educational aspects, economic. So it's really like a big, very big complicated problem.
Did you zero down any geographical section of the world, or were you looking globally?
So in my data, since I'm using like the whole UN data, I was looking at the full globe and taking like the data from there. But now in the second setup, I'm going to deeper into, because like that was just like the baseline model, so to say, just like set up everything with global data, with global parameters, and try to see how you can improve in certain regions by implementing, for example, visa restrictions, because I'm quite sure that this is like an important aspect. So I'm trying to find like a way in a stochastic language where you have like distributions, how can you implement properly visa restrictions to make like the model even better and to understand what are the effects actually of visa restrictions. So that's the next step that I'm actually currently working on.
So this is the question then you will pursue in your current position now when you are building a research group there?
There are like different questions that I'm pursuing. So I'm also like continuing these other aspects that I told you about, like climate impacts, try to measure them, try to quantify them, do time series analysis on them. So about frequencies, about different scenarios, how do they evolve? So that's also like one aspect that I'm going to continue. And then like a third one, so these are like the three main parts, is like, again, about going to energy grid stability. So at this University of Applied Sciences, there's like company which also tries to do this, to work on like stability of their own electrical grid. Yeah, we're trying to set up like a collaboration and try to find like better solutions and so on. So these are like the three main fields.
To my listeners, I would like to tell you that if you're interested in Karim's work, you can obviously search him on the web and maybe approach to him if you're interested to contribute to the research in this direction. Maybe we have left out on the question that why did you decide to make a transition to this particular professor position?
Mm-hmm. During that postdoc time, there was like one aspect that I was a little bit missing. So I did like a lot of volunteering work. I mean, the Potsdam Institute gets like a lot of requests for presentations, workshops, whatever. And I did that like a lot, going like to schools, for example, but do also like with adults, doing like some educational programs on climate and also on migration and all these things. But I was really missing like this whole teaching part, like properly in full courses and not only like giving certain lectures or something. And so I was looking like for a position where I also could again do more of this teaching aspect. And again, like postdocs are like short term. So at some point you need like to find like a permanent position. But I was also like, again, I wanted to also again combine it with the research that I did like earlier, this energy grid stability, and working on that and continue on that. And so I was looking like for many, many different positions. So I was not only looking like for professorships. And actually, I wasn't hoping to find like a professorship. So I wasn't thinking that I would be able to get one. It was only like my colleague, she was approached, like she was at the similar stage that I was. And she was approached by someone saying, hey, don't you want to apply like for this professorship in Frankfurt? And she said, no, actually, I want to stay like in Berlin, but I have like a colleague whose CV, similar stage of career, so maybe that could be something for him. And I wasn't like very sure. I thought, no, they would never take me. They didn't take me in the end. But so she somehow convinced me to at least write this application. And since I already had like an application for also for professorships, I thought, okay, maybe if I find like a position which is interesting, I could still submit the application and see what comes out.
Oh, very nice story. See, you are overcoming the barrier that you had imprinted on your mind from childhood, and this overcoming the barrier on the other side, you are succeeding in getting roles that I think you are best suited for, basically, because all your life story and your skills and your research actually merging together in this position. So many congratulations. And we are almost at the end of our podcast. But I would not let you go before asking you some small fun question about your interests. So tell me about your hobbies. What are you interested in?
Okay, I like reading. I really like reading many different things and exploring many different literature. So if you have suggestions, just let me know. I have like a stash of books that I wanted actually to do during the summer, so that didn't work out. So that's like.
Do you like nonfiction?
Both, actually, fiction, nonfiction. I really like.
If you have to recommend one book to other people, what would that be?
That's a very difficult question. If you want to hear like one book that inspired me recently, which really made me think like a lot and a long time, is when it comes like to the topic of feminism, actually, specifically, I would really recommend Susan Abu Hawa, Against the Loveless World. Susan Abu Hawa. That really stirred something up for me, and then had really to think a long time about it, and really very nice, and it's greatly written. Yeah, so reading is like one thing. I also like to play guitar and sing along with it. That was like something that I learned during COVID. So we were all like very lonely sitting around. So I thought, let's try to learn something new. So I thought, okay, I know how to play guitar, but maybe we can also learn to sing, since we don't have like the band anymore that I used to have during my PhD time. So I learned it like a little bit. And finally, I also do like to do sports. So
I remember that you guys had a band and during your PhD, and then you used to perform also for Christmas parties, for our university Christmas parties for the department. It was so nice, this particular time that I remember, before pandemic though, right?
Everything was before pandemic. We were also on the street, so got
yes. Yeah, that was fun time. We had lots of fun listening to you guys. Do you have any role models who had great impact in your life?
So the thing with role models is, with me, it was like during like my school time, I had like different ones. So I was like inspired by certain philosophers, and then, or like maybe by certain teachers. But then usually once you evolve, you change your mind about them, and then you start to become more critical, or you think, okay, maybe it's not that, it wasn't what I expected that it would be. I imagined more into that person than it would be. But maybe one inspiring person, and that will maybe come to a surprise, is when I did like this volunteering work for teaching German to refugees. So I was like teaching mostly adults, but some of the group also started to do like these kind of children activities. So we were going together to playgrounds, and I also volunteering for that, and to I don't know how you call it, supervise these children when they're on the playground, so no one breaks his neck and these kind of things. So exactly. So and during that time, I met like many of these children, and that's actually very. I don't want to end on a sad note, but it was very sad to hear again that they're experiencing the same racist stuff that I experienced back then. They were telling me the same stories about teachers, the same stories about difficulties to learn the language and all these kind of things, and it reminded me like a lot. And now coming to the role model, actually, and then it's going to be like a positive note. Like there was like this one child, and she was always so optimistic about it. I somehow fell like into a hole back then, and it took me like really some time and motivating teachers to get out of it. But she was so much more independent, so much stronger. So it's like she just said, yeah, it's hard, but at least we're alive. At least we're here, and at least we're together. At least we have this. So she was always like positive about it. At least we're having fun here today. And she succeeded, actually. So she's now currently studying biochemistry at the university close by. And that's for me really inspiring. So I don't have like these role models who, I don't know, succeeded in winning huge prizes or anything. I'm more fond of people who, given their problems and their struggles, still succeed and make the best out of themselves. And that's really, so she's really like a role model for me. And I told her that really. And she was like, oh, but you have like a PhD. And I said, yeah, but I mean, look what you have done, given your story. And yeah.
I totally agree. In the similar way, you are a role model to many of us. You have many inspiring achievements to look at. So how many languages do you speak?
4.
And what are they?
German, English, Arabic, and French.
Wow, that's quite a list. What is the biggest cultural shock you had experienced when traveling to many places during different exposures?
The biggest cultural shocks. Okay, I have like really fun thing that I really like, and that's so I was like once traveling like in Bulgaria, and so I'm used to like in my cultural spheres, and I know like many other cultures which are like similar, is that you really feed people. Like not there's never enough food that you can offer, and you can always write, and you always offer more. And so there was like one time we're like in Bulgaria. And we were like traveling, and we arrived very late because we had like problems with the car, and we arrived like very late. And there was like this old lady, and she was like living she was like our host, and she was also like living on the first floor. And we were like so sorry about that we came late, and whether she had to wake up and open the door and everything, because she didn't have like these number locks and what you usually have. But still, like on the next day, she offered us like such a huge, gigantic meal. We couldn't even finish half of it. And I can't understand when did she do that? We woke up like again at 9, and I don't know when she started preparing that. And so that was like a very positive shock. And we couldn't communicate with her because she spoke like only very little English, and we didn't really speak Bulgarian. So we tried with our hands and feet, and it was so nice, and I really enjoyed it. And
Great story. If people want to connect to you, are you present in any social media where they can connect to you, or your email is enough?
I don't have any social media. If they want to connect to me, I think email is the best. So if you just Google my name, you will find it at the Institute page or somewhere else. And I'm happy, yes. If you're interested in doing research together, reaching out, if you need like advice on something, if I can be of any help, please don't hesitate.
Thank you. That's a great help offered for my listeners. Thank you, Karim. I would let you go to this question, though. What is the biggest challenge that you had faced in your adult life? And if you have to give advice to your younger self during that time facing that challenge, what advice would you give?
That's again a big question. I think like one thing that shaped me also from studying physics and math and doing like always this very technical stuff is that you become very, very rigorous in your belief system. Also, it also has like an impact on what you think is right and what is wrong, and you start to reason to try to find like logical arguments why things are like they are. And I was like very consequential in some aspects. You know what I believe, that if this is true and I can derive it, so to say, I mean, there's nothing that you can derive when it comes to ethics or something, but it's like I had so many strong beliefs, and I was like very strict on myself and also to other people when it came to that. And if I can advise my younger self, is that to let loose on these kind of things when it comes like to humans and societies. And it's all very complicated. We all live for the first time and only once, and there's no deterministic rule which says which is true and which is not. And people are, I mean, I have evolved along so many stages. I was like conservative when I was like younger. I had like, internalized racism. And then at some point I opened up, and I learned so many things on my way. So, and other people are maybe at different stages, maybe further, and have like different experiences. So they have like different views on things. So always be open-minded, always be critical with yourself, but not too critical. So remain human. And I think that would be like the advice that I would give myself, not to be too strict.
That's such a beautiful advice. And I think all of us have to remind ourselves we are only human, and not to judge ourselves too strictly at times, that we do also. And thank you for sharing such a beautiful story. Thank you for overcoming such big challenges in your life. I think in many, many ways, these conditions would have totally shoved you in a closed zone, but you have found ways through mentors, through your family, to come out of this space and then emerge from there successfully and build a career in such a way that it actually aligns your internal compass with the interests of the world also. So thank you for paving such a path and to give a reminder to ourselves, to all of us, that no challenges are big enough. We can overcome them if we have the right support and right mindset. Thank you, Karim, for being here. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Sananda, for having me. It was really nice.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
This was our conversation with Professor Karim Zantout, a journey that weaves together science, migration, and human experience. From moving to Germany as a child and facing cultural and personal challenges, to excelling in science and education, and later finding purpose across academia, industry, and research. His story reminds us that growth often begins in the moments of discomfort and uncertainty. In this episode, we heard how curiosity became his compass, guiding him from physics to data science, from research in high-temperature superconductors to the impact of climate change in human migration, and ultimately to his current role as a professor of data science and IT. What stands out most, though, is not just his academic success, but his openness, his reflections on identity, imposter syndrome, and belonging. His story is a powerful reminder that true resilience lies in acknowledging our vulnerabilities while continuing to grow forward with integrity and purpose. If this conversation resonated with you, please take a moment to share it with someone who might find strength and perspective in his story. You can find the links to everything we have discussed, from his research to the institutions mentioned, in the show notes or in the description box below. And remember that DPT Podcast is now available on all major streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Stay tuned for more stories of courage, curiosity, and transformations across academia and beyond. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep decoding your own journey.